Let's turn to some major new developments out of the Mueller probe. Could this seemingly endless investigation finally be coming to an end? Here with us for a full report, Doug McElway. Doug?
Governor, good to see you. Further evidence that the Mueller probe is about to be wrapped up is the president's comment today that he has finished answering written questions supplied by the special counsel's office.
I haven't submitted them yet. I just finished them. As you know, I've been a little bit busy. It didn't take very long to do them, and they were my answers. I don't need lawyers to do that. Now, you need lawyers for submittal. You need lawyers to go over some of the answers, but they're not very difficult questions.
The president's comment that he hasn't submitted the answers yet is potentially significant. Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has repeatedly said that the president would not answer any questions from Mueller on possible obstruction of justice. The remarks also come after Mr. Trump's Twitter storm yesterday, in which he tore into Mueller's probe. Quote, "They're screaming and shouting at people, horribly threatening them to come up with the answers they want. They are a disgrace to our nation and don't care how many lives they ruin." And in another tweet, "The only collusion is that of the Democrats with Russia and many others. Why didn't the FBI take the server from the DNC? They still don't have it. Check out how biased Facebook, Google, and Twitter are in favor of the Democrats. That's the real collusion." Speculation is rampant that Mueller may indict two Trump cohorts, Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi, both of whom have stated they think they will be indicted. That, while George Papadopoulos, a former low-level Trump foreign policy advisor, is asking a judge to stay his 2-week sentence until an appeals court rules separately on whether the Mueller probe is unconstitutional. Papadopoulos is to report to prison on November 26. And separately, House Republicans who are about to bid farewell to their majority in all their investigations of Mueller are making a last-ditch effort to connect on a lame duck session Hail Mary. Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte has said he will subpoena former FBI Director Jim Comey for a closed-door deposition on November 29th and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch on December 5th. In the new Congress, look for things to flip, with Democrats ramping up all kinds of investigations of Trump. The incoming House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff wants to examine whether Mr. Trump laundered money for Russia when he was a businessman. Governor, back to you.
Thank you, Doug. Joining us now with more, the author of The Deep State, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, the author of The Russia Hoax, one of my favorite books, by the way, and that's authored by Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, along with Fox News contributors Tammy Bruce and Sarah Carter. Good to have all of you here. Sarah, let me begin with you. The Mueller investigation, it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. The president says he's got all those answers done, and it was not hard at all.
Well, and the president also made it very clear, and according to sources that I've spoken with, has made it clear for quite a long time, there's nothing there. They can investigate all they want, but there is absolutely no collusion with Russia. I'm willing to talk about this openly, and he has, and now he's answered these questions. And as far as obstruction and any kind of charges of obstruction, we know that's now been pushed aside by Mueller. You can't charge the president with obstructing justice for firing Comey, one, because Rod Rosenstein himself authored the memo to have him fired, and two, under Article 2 of the Constitution, the president can fire anybody he wants. So at that point in time, I think this is what we're looking at, is Mueller's going to wrap up this probe. We're going to see this wrap up. We're going to see some people possibly come under indictment, maybe Jerome Corsi, maybe Roger Stone, and then we can all move on, and we're probably going to move on to the Democrats now, spending the next 2 years investigating more investigations that will lead to nowhere. So.
Greg, you have talked extensively about, you call it the Russia hoax. Whitaker now seems to be the new whipping boy because somehow the fact that he is in charge of the investigation means that it's suspect. Where does that go?
Oh, it probably goes nowhere. Look, the Office of Legal Counsel issued a 20-page opinion. They're very independent. They said he is perfectly entitled to have been appointed to the position under the recusal regulations. Commenting about a case is not grounds for recusal. I think this continues. I mean, Whitaker is not going to interfere with Mueller. Trump's not going to fire Mueller, especially now since it appears to be reaching the very end. There's no reason to believe there was ever any evidence of collusion. And how do we know that? Because the top FBI lawyer, Lisa Page, in her deposition confessed the entire time the FBI had the case, they never found any evidence of collusion. And that's significant because you have to have evidence in order to of a crime in order to appoint a special counsel. So that means the appointment of Robert Mueller was illegitimate. They never had any evidence.
Well, one of the things, though, that this brings up, you've got Senator Jeff Flake. He says that he's not going to even allow judicial nominations to get to the floor and go through unless they let him have his little bill that would require a protection of the Mueller probe. There's no indication that anybody's pulling the plug on it. So, Congressman, let me ask you to weigh in on that. Why do we need to pass a bill to protect something that doesn't need to be protected by all indications?
No, we don't. Fundamentally, we don't. First of all, I think what they're proposing is highly unconstitutional. You cannot tie the hands of a president who is empowered by the Constitution. You can't say, Mr. President, you can't fire this particular person. So, A, it's unconstitutional. B, there's no evidence that Donald Trump is actually going to fire this person or dismiss this person. He's been open. He's been transparent. He's been answering their questions. He's about to submit those questions that he got. And I see no need for it. So to hold up judicial appointments for something that's not going to happen anyway, unconstitutional and not necessary.
And Tammy, if nothing is found by Mueller, how in the world does Congress go anywhere with this? What is it they're going to investigate? If Mueller comes up in a dry hole, no matter how deep he's drilled, what do they investigate and why?
Well, look, I mean, this entire investigation from the start was a fraud. All right, it developed out of their own minds, perhaps from their own actions, of course. You always say one of the leftist tactics is to accuse your opposition of what it is you're doing. So I can imagine that they'll come up with something, and of course it'll be another fraud. All of this is posturing. Everything we've been discussing, including the Jeff Flake action, is really so that they can say, well, you know, he was never fired because we stopped Trump. All of these things are about emotions. It's a fixation on the president. And it's also to give the impression that the Democrats are doing something, because otherwise they might have to try to govern and come up with some ideas that would actually be good for the country and move us forward. But they can't do it. So this is, I think, what is important here is also the fact that the president has even had to write answers to questions that generated, as Greg noted, from an investigation that was illegitimate from the start, that was meant to be exclusively political. And, you know, that report, Governor, will go to Congress, to the House, which then they will say, or at least try to say, that this is the basis for impeachment, because they'll read into it whatever they want to. This is where the president's communication team is key. I'm sad that your daughter is going to be leaving the administration at the end of the year. But
I don't know that she is. I'll have to ask her about that. Well, she's not told me. So,
well, the intimation is earlier in this year that she was. I hope that that's incorrect. But the bottom line is, they're going to have a job to do to push back aggressively, which is not usually the Republican skill of standing up for themselves, but going further and, in fact, pushing back on this entire fraud that has been perpetrated on the American people to the tune of millions of dollars and to the distraction of a man who's trying to save this country.
I want to go back to Congressman Chaffetz, because one of the reports is that we've had indication that Adam Schiff, one of your former colleagues in the Congress, has briefed some of the high-dollar donors in the Democrat Party about the investigations. Is that ethical? Is it appropriate? And if so, what would he have told them?
No, it's not. Look, you can do fundraisers, you can go and talk to interest groups, but if you're billed as, I'm going to provide you information that nobody else is going to be able to provide you because I'm the incoming chairman of the Intelligence Committee, that is really highly suspicious, and I think there needs to be more questions. You know, one of the fundamental things that's different here, Governor, is that the Democrats have signaled 86 different investigations. But they don't have the evidence first. They're presupposing the outcome. They're telling you the conclusion. So he's going to go meet with this group telling you exactly what you're going to do instead of following the evidence. That's
we have a couple of people here on the panel that I want to get back to, both Sarah and Greg. Sarah, let me come back to you, because this investigation, as you and Greg have both pointed out, has essentially been a fire without fuel. How long must Americans tolerate this, and do you see this ending before the end of the year?
I think Americans are extraordinarily frustrated. I think they're angry about this. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I get every day in emails. But I got to tell you this, where there was fuel, it exposed what happened with the FBI and with the DOJ. Deep malfeasance within the FBI and DOJ, which needs to be investigated. And let's not forget that Inspector General Michael Horowitz is still working on his report. It should be issued sometime next year. And it's focusing solely on how the FBI handled this Russia investigation. And every day, Governor Huckabee, we have more and more information about malfeasance. And if Senator Lindsey Graham gets the chairmanship, he promises that he'll continue these investigations. But I think it's going to go much further than this. I think we're going to see some indictments. I think that things are going to come to the surface within the DOJ. We still don't know what John Huber's been investigating. I don't think it's going to end here. I think it's going to end for the president and the fact that he's going to be exonerated. But I think after that, it's not going to end for Hillary Clinton and the rest of them at the FBI.
All right, Greg, we've got less than a minute, but the takeaway from your book that I remember is that there was collusion, but it wasn't with President Trump. It was with Hillary Clinton and their organization.
It's amazingly ironic. Hillary Clinton paid for Russian information that was then fed to the FBI to damage her political opponent. And that was the pretext for the Trump-Russia investigation, and they took it a step further. They used that phony dossier they knew was fabricated from an unreliable, lying source, and they deceived the FISA court judges, concealing evidence and essentially perpetrating a fraud on the court. That needs to be investigated.
Well, hopefully it will be, and I want to say thanks to all of you for being here and sharing perspectives. Coming up on this special edition of Hannity, we're going to have the very latest from the crisis at our southern border. William Lajeunesse is going to join us from the border at Tijuana, so stay with us.